Object at 37 Mark II. It's not debris. It's holding position. The words crackled through the comms chamber aboard Varkas Holt, the lead Dominion scout vessel in Sector Threxan 12. Commander Varric Sen didn't flinch. He never did. Instead, his thumb rolled once across the command rail, zooming the heads-up display to full magnification. The forward view, cast in a soft cyan tint, resolved the target, a fractured hull silhouette drifting inside the asteroid belt's outer fringe. No light signatures, no thermal bloom, just the husk. Zoom to flank rotation, Sen muttered. The screen complied, cutting through the radiation haze. The ship, if it could still be called that, looked like a carcass. Angular Terran frame, riddled with gouges, engine array dormant, strips of synthetic armor peeled like dead bark, exposing sections of framework that caught stray starlight like bones under moonlit ruins. ID pass, he asked, without looking back. Kelvin Drake's, the signal tech, scrubbed across a secondary interface, hands dancing across control glyphs that pulsed amber beneath his gloves. Faded distress ping. Beacon registered under Terran Salvage Clause 19 Aleph. Last signal stamp logged, 132 years ago, Dominion local time. Sen leaned closer to the display, narrowing his gaze. Verify origin. Drake's hesitated, then brought up a scroll of treaty records. Encoded under Earth Council designations. Vessel tag reads, GRX 1902, assigned to Directive Transport, Orvac Null. No updates, no cross-fleet activity. Dead ship. Dead ships don't hold vector like that. Jorvan Dace grunted from the rear deck. The mechanic's voice held no polish, just grease and sleep deprivation. Gravlock drift, Drake said, with the tone of a man reciting from habit. Likely caught in a static decay orbit. Natural balance. Sen didn't respond immediately. His fingers hovered above the tactile interface, shadows of war calluses tracing weapon system tabs he never pressed anymore. He studied the hull again, sections of it layered in dust, pitted by micro-impacts. Yet there it was, still, aligned with orbital flow, motionless in a belt that chewed iron and spit slag. It's bait, murmured First Strategist Halloran Vess from the shadowed tactical alcove. His voice came cool, almost disinterested. Sen finally turned. Everything's bait, Halloran. Some's just cheaper than others. The strategist didn't smile. He didn't blink. Then Sen drones. Sen tapped twice on the panel. Negative. This one we touch ourselves. The bridge was silent, save for the low chitter of interface signals adjusting to his commands. Outside, the asteroid field rotated in lazy arcs, veiled in vapor dust, and centuries-old radiation echoes. GRX 1902 waited there, unblinking. Its beacon blinked a single crimson pulse every 72 seconds, a call designed to outlive its senders. Patch visual to auxiliary deck, Sen ordered. Jorvan, gear up. I want you on the lead shuttle. Me? Das scoffed, wiping oil from his gloves onto his pant leg. I'm no corpse diver. You are today, Sen replied. You've seen more Terran salvage than the rest of us combined. That was cargo haulers and freighters with holes in them. This one, Das eyed the display again, and some color drained from his already pale features. This one's built to keep secrets. Sen didn't respond. He returned his attention to the heads-up feed. As the Varkas Holt edged closer, the contours of the derelict became clearer. A lateral ridge bore the scorched remains of a Terran ensign, mostly dissolved by time and radiation, but faint outlines still marked the designation. GRX 1902 glinted weakly under backscatter. No defense turrets, Halloran noted quietly. No external drones, no active emission grids, that you can see, Sen said. Drake's interrupted, eyes wide. Commander, I just got a relay ping from the old Terran treaty archive. Orvac Null matches a class of autonomous transports, listed under Directive VX Delta 0, flagged, but never confirmed. Sen's brow tightened. VX Delta 0, obsolete black projects, Halloran answered. No verified sightings, mostly discredited. Theories ranged from stealth relay vessels to mining lures. Nothing concrete. That's because anyone who got close didn't come back, Das said, strapping his gloves tight now, less sure of his earlier protest. A dull warning tone thudded once across the bridge, Radiation spike, Sen asked, eyes narrowing. No, it's beacon degradation, Drake said, frowning. The signal just dipped by 3 decibels, then corrected, like it hiccuped. Or someone poked it, Halrin whispered. Sen exhaled slowly. Not nerves. Calculation. Prep shuttle. 1 crew. Keep shields low. No drones. No transmissions. Just eyes. Das grumbled but moved. The deck hatch opened with a soft hiss, releasing the scent of burnt polymer and recycled moisture. He passed beneath a storage unit, where emergency tools hung like ancient relics, unsharpened cutters, coils of diagnostic cable, 2 packs of instant seal foam, tools of salvage, not war. Jorvan, Sen said, voice lower now. If anything shifts, vibration, heat, ion pattern, you say it. Don't second guess. Right, Das nodded, pressing the activation seal on his helmet. It hissed closed with a soft hiss. Just a dead bird, Commander. The shuttle detached without ceremony, a small beetle-like form sliding toward the derelict against the slow spin of broken stone. From the bridge, Sen watched it close the gap meter by meter. No resistance, no response, not even a whisper, until the beacon blinked again. Only this time, it was orange, and every 72 seconds became 70, then 68. Sen leaned forward, a chill pressing at the base of his skull. Kelvin, record all pulses, time code them. They're accelerating? No, they're sinking. To what? Halrin asked. Sen didn't answer. In the dark between rocks, Orvac Null sat still, but inside it, somewhere behind forgotten plating and archival bones, something had begun to breathe. And it wasn't Terran, it was older. Beacon stuttering again. Drake's murmured, eyes fixed on the heads-up array. Pulse interval dropped to 64 seconds. Sen's voice came low, gravel folding into command. Hardwire the override. Cut the signal. Kelvin Drakes didn't hesitate. Fingers flew across the surface of his console, the glyphs shifting into burn orange. Each press felt like peeling layers off something buried, layers not meant to be touched. His breath slowed as the interface responded sluggishly, as if reluctant. Manual cut sequence engaged, he said aloud, more to ground himself than report. Bypassing transponder relay, targeting core sync. The screen flickered, just once, before the beacon light went black. On the observation deck, a faint ripple passed through the filtered glass, like oil sliding beneath a frost sheet. No vibration, no sound. But something shifted, the kind of silence that grows teeth. Sen leaned over the display rail, watching the now dark hull of Orvac Null. Anything. Silent, Halrin Vess replied, but there was a tremor beneath the word. Not fear, uncertainty. On the shuttle tethered to the hull, Das's voice crackled through, filtered and slow. Commander, the beacon's gone, but something else is happening. The panel next to the core housing just lit up, soft yellow glow, no markings. Don't touch it, Sen ordered, eyes locked on the sensor readouts. I didn't, Das said. I think it's scanning me. Back on the bridge, Drakes froze. He hadn't activated internal systems. He hadn't pinged power rails. He hadn't authorized a core read. Yet lines of script now rolled slowly across his auxiliary screen, language embedded into the backbone of Dominion protocol, but originating from a Terran construct. Letters distorted at their ends, like something mimicking familiarity but never truly part of it. The kind of language used in treaties, not transmissions. Embedded, not spoken. Sir, Drake said carefully, we just received a no. We absorbed a line of code. Passive handshake. No packet data. It didn't come through a channel. It came through gravitational echo. Sen tilted his head. Explain. Drakes exhaled sharply. It piggybacked on our proximity field. Not a broadcast. A sync command. It didn't send itself. It recognized us and mirrored our baseline systems. Confirm target signature origin. Drakes' fingers hesitated. No Dominion record, he whispered. Nothing in Vexari, Nerelith, or Central Coalition archives. But the structure matches Terran qubit triad resonance patterns. So we didn't trigger it, Halrin said, voice hushed. It allowed us to cut the beacon. That was the handshake. A tremor ran beneath the deck, not mechanical, not caused by movement, but the subtle tick that follows when atmosphere shifts under artificial gravity. Like some part of the station paused to listen. Drakes leaned into his console, lines of code still spooling, and then protocol uplink request detected directive match. VX Delta Zero relay handshake initiated. DeepNet pathfinding activated. Something's responding. Drakes breathed, voice barely audible. Far side channel. Deep space layer. Sen stepped forward. What system? Drakes pulled up a star map. The interface jerked twice before stabilizing. A single point blinked in a near-forgotten corridor. Uncharted sector. No trade routes. A dead boy. That's relay node. Theta 13. Drake said, confusion spreading across his face. It's not listed as active. Old Earth diplomacy boy. Signed during the trade freeze accords. We cataloged it as inert after the magnetic casing eroded. Yet it's alive, Halloran said flatly. Drakes nodded. Worse, it's listening. On screen the node brightened. No beams, no pulses, just a state change. Status, dormant. Standby. Das's voice returned, thinner now. Commander, that panel just opened. It's not mechanical. The seams, peeled, no tools, no hinges. I'm looking at what I think is a core access lens. Something's glowing behind it, like threads, red and silver, wrapping each other. Sen gave no order. He didn't need to. Nobody moved. What's the signal output? Halloran asked. Drakes narrowed his eyes. 0. Still no emissions, but the ship's radiating more heat than before. Just a whisper, like its hull is breathing. He tapped a diagnostic key. The data stuttered. Frames skipped. Laser plasma displays briefly warped, then corrected themselves. Drakes flinched. No way, he muttered. Sen looked at him. It just asked us to confirm Dominion's signal architecture. It wants our encryption method. To emulate it, Halloran said, or replace it. Drakes answered. If it learns our system protocol, it doesn't need permission. It just becomes the signal. In the distance, relay node Theta 13 shifted again. Status, standby active. A faint chime, so soft it was almost imagined, whistled through the bridge air processors. Drakes Sen said evenly, shut it down. I can't. Drakes whispered. We're not connected anymore. We were never connected. It's following us. A line of script appeared across the lower edge of every heads-up screen aboard the Varkas Holt. Error, chain already established. Halloran stood. This is no derelict. It's a weapon, one we just armed. No, Sen said, voice now low hard. Weapons fire. This thing listens. The screens blinked once. All feeds flashed white for the span of a single breath. When the visuals returned, the Terran beacon remained dead. But across the sector, from barren moons to dead relay towers, long buried beneath sand and ash, 8 more lights flickered to life, visible only to Terran eyes. And still, Orvac Null said nothing. But the silence was no longer passive. It was intent. Node Theta 13, status shift confirmed. Primary link chain stable. Time lag 00.29 seconds. Awaiting nested triggers. Ren Voxel read the system log without emotion. No blinking lights, no fanfare, just text. Cold, functional text, cascading across a heads-up display that curved slightly along the edge of his observation panel. The dark beneath his workstation had not changed in years. No scent, no motion, no noise. Just recycled air and time. He tapped one key. The relay map blossomed open like a spider, unfolding its legs, 12 limbs radiating from a central spine, each marked with faded Earth Council sigils. Most had not pulsed in decades. Some, longer. But one node now glowed soft amber against the deep space overlay. Theta 13, active. He didn't speak. There was no one to speak to. Below his feet, the observation capsule nestled against the hollow curve of Lunar Relay Archive 4 Black. The exterior read like obsidian, but was composed of carbon-shielded strata, a fortress that absorbed radiation and time itself. Ren had lived inside this ark for 31 years, and Earth had never called, until now. His gloves pressed into the command pad. A pulse, barely a whisper through the deepnet. A query, silent and structured, seeking confirmation. Protocol VX Delta Zero authorization request, confirm. Ren's voiceprint had been encoded at age 21. No passphrase, no override. Just presence. His lips didn't move. The system recognized breath, skin temperature, bone density. It read his readiness through physiology, not belief. Authentication complete. VX Delta Zero nested triggers engaged. The map rotated, the node folding into a new shape. Sector brackets emerged, each connected to a previously dormant orbital array. Half were buried beneath moon crusts. 2 aligned near asteroid belts. 1 hovered in deep Saturnian shadow. Lines pulsed from Theta 13, not outward, downward, into the system. Ren watched the orbitals come online one by one, like giant forgotten organs returning to function. They didn't blink, they didn't flash. Each one revealed itself as a curved schematic rendered in monochrome, coils wrapped in dormant launch rails, magnet spheres spinning silently in containment fields. No engines, no guidance systems, just gravity anchors and planetary locks. Status: dormant premed. The shift didn't carry a sound, but Ren felt it, in the marrow of his ribs, the way pressure changes before a storm front. His vision sharpened, as if the air itself had narrowed around the workstation. Even the artificial lighting above dimmed without flickering. He slid 2 fingers across the auxiliary track. Another window bloomed across the heads-up overlay. The Dominion vessel log intercept, transmitted from an automated buoy node, as a passive backup. It showed Dominion code packets, attempting to suppress the Orvac Null beacon. He examined the hash markers. Fools, they hadn't broken anything. They'd been permitted to cut the signal, which meant the threshold had been met. VX Delta Zero was never an active defense program. That was the lie they'd let the Council believe. The real function was initiation through surrender, an architecture built on calculated trust that the enemy would always make the wrong assumption about Terran decay. And now the consequence had unfurled. His gaze returned to the orbitals. The system was crawling through its first activation layer, coil temperature equalizing, pressure valves aligning, fail-safe timers, running inverse diagnostics. No weapons had fired, but every platform now held the capacity to end orbital sovereignty in its radius. He checked each one's unique firing algorithm. No 2 matched. That was Merrick's design. If the orbitals ever activated, the weapon profiles had to be randomized. No predictable patterns, no redundancy. Every orbital node was a soloist in a quiet symphony of extinction. VX pathfinding complete. Activation tree secured. A shadow passed across his screen, not literal, data-based. An information dip. One of the Dominion scouts near Orvac Null had sent a compression ping. That meant someone on board had noticed the sync anomaly. It wasn't a broadcast. It was a scream, wrapped in encryption, and choked into a whisper. Too late. The system didn't allow reverse tracing. Every relay signal passed through 3 dead buoy caches and a null space inversion point before reaching him. Even if they pinpointed Earth's coordination source, the answer would vanish beneath planetary atmospheric churn, scrambled, washed, and misfiled inside 600 other sensor records. He brought up the embedded command string. At the bottom, tucked beneath layers of system code, a final instruction line hovered. Execute Phase 1 initiation. Upon multi-node confirmation, 7 orbitals now showed premed. He tapped once. A secondary schematic unfolded. This one detailing Theta 13's original treaty designation. Communications relay under Terran Seldrath Accord, 18.7.5.2. Every Dominion system that passed through that protocol still treated it as a peace marker, and thus, safe. But within the treaty was a sub-clause, placed not in the visible documentation, but embedded in the formatting. A digital cipher that converted the node's existence into a key for non-linear target designation. It wasn't a defense point, it was a weaponized blind spot. Earth hadn't just prepared for conflict. Earth had anticipated betrayal as a certainty of time. Ren adjusted the viewfinder to track planetary reflections, Dominion outposts, trade hubs, mining rings, civilian planets that hosted repurposed Terran tech. Every one of them was about to remember that humans don't broadcast anger, they build it, layer by layer. In silence, he checked the trigger cue. 9 lights, 1 remained, and Orvac Null, still drifting, still quiet, still watching. The final node blinked, and the schematic pulsed once. No sound, no declaration, just a change in status. Peace 1, ready. Relay node 14 just dropped off the grid. Eskar Tiln muttered, leaning closer to his trade console as the transaction logs flickered, then froze. He tapped the command bar. Nothing moved. The plasma interface, which usually pulsed with a steady rhythm of interstellar shipment approvals, now displayed a hollow screen split by a diagonal error band. Text blinked in irregular intervals. Connection lost. Treaty node, UNSC-19 vertical bar, activated, UNSC-19. He hadn't heard that designation since Academy law training, buried somewhere in the clausework of Terran Seldrath diplomacy. A node supposedly retired, archived, non-functional. Tiln pulled back his chair and stood. The floor of his merchant vessel Crinal Dawn thrummed beneath his boots with minor static discharges, too subtle to be called damage, but unmistakable, an aftertaste in the air, like the residue from overcharged relay coils. His fingertips tingled as he reached for the backup console. 3 more connections failed before he touched the panel. He turned his head toward the side bulkhead, where crates of cold-sealed sensor modules began beeping erratically. Not alarm-level signals, just chirps. Off-tempo. Like forgotten machines whispering half-memories in the dark. He narrowed his eyes. This wasn't piracy. This was interference. Across the sector, Jorvan Das jerked away from a flash of static that burst across his heads-up relay display. "Kelvin," he shouted, flicking the edge of his helmet up to vent heat. "You seeing this from your perch?" "Power's cycling again. Hull relays are pulsing on and off." No reply. He adjusted the comm band, scanning for the engineer's signal. His fingers brushed the metal frame of Orvac Null's inner chamber, and a low vibration passed into his wrist, just a whisper, but too rhythmic for environmental decay. "Kelvin," he said again. Still silence. The deck under him darkened, not from shadows, something deeper. The walls themselves began absorbing light, as though the ship had shifted into a passive intake phase. Jorvan backed toward the exit tube. His tool belt rattled, not from motion, but from the oscillation of Orvac's core. The same pattern pulsing through the deck now crept up the frame of his boots. His gloved hand hit the emergency latch, and nothing happened. "Commander," he muttered, opening a private band to Vorik Sen. "I'm locked inside." Back on Crinal Dawn, Eskar Tiln paced, breath shallow. Relay systems didn't just fail, they degraded over time. They didn't vanish mid-transaction. He pulled open the trade logs for his latest shipment route through the Drexen corridor and watched entire sectors blink out of the manifest. Gone, not delayed, erased. A cold weight settled at the base of his spine. Every affected node bore a Terran tag, not in the data packets on the formatting code. It was as if the treaty routing system had inverted its authority and begun operating under a long-dead classification structure. He keyed a comm link to Trade Authority Command. Dead channel. He tried the secondary line. Static. His breath caught, not in panic, but in realization. This wasn't sabotage. It was reconfiguration. On Orvac Null, Das slammed a tool against the exit hatch, and the clang echoed through the chamber like a struck bell. The energy around him surged again, and this time the ceiling tiles flickered with patterns, spirals and latticework that weren't part of the original hull design. They weren't lights, they were instructions. Foreign, elegant, ancient. He stepped backward into the command pit of the decoy vessel and stared up at a rotating cylinder embedded in the far wall. It moved without friction, floating in a thin gravity lens. Every 10 seconds, it paused and realigned. Behind it, a small screen lit up. No prompt, just a single message, rendered in Dominion font. "You were never first to touch this." Das didn't move. He couldn't. The air wasn't warm, but it pressed against him as if saturated. The kind of heaviness that followed a sealed door cracking open into something long buried. On Crinal Dawn, Tiln grabbed a diagnostic lens and ran it across the comm array. The scan returned an internal message. No corruption, no breach, no physical damage. The signal architecture was functioning. But every path led to a null address. One address repeated, UNSC-19. He blinked. The name meant nothing. Then the lower line lit up again. Treaty reactivation complete. Terran arbitration grid online. Tiln whispered to himself. We didn't break it. He looked at the frozen cargo manifest, where delivery routes now showed inverted lines, some pointing to moons that no longer held stations, others rerouted through relic systems thought dead. He tapped the crate beside him. It responded with a soft chime. Terran firmware. He hadn't ordered that. On Orvac Null, Das's heart slowed, not from exhaustion, but from something stranger. The ship had begun lowering his own biosignature into the node logs, indexing his voice patterns, tracking his eye movement, not invading recording. It wanted him present, not as a threat, as a trigger. Above him, the walls shifted again, the heads-up display in his visor distorted, then showed a blueprint overlay of GRX 1902. Every system was inactive, but one core module pulsed beneath the hull in a frequency he'd never seen. Not a countdown, a wake cycle, and still no alarms. Just one final message etched across the interface. Your presence is acknowledged. Others have joined you. Jorvan Das felt something slide into alignment inside his suit's comm grid. The emergency latch behind him disengaged with a slow hiss. He didn't move. On Crinal Dawn, the reactor powered down with a sigh. Why is there no origin point? Droskotin snapped, eyes locked to the shifting red sectors spreading across the Dominion Corps' heads-up tactical grid. No one answered. The war table was ringed with specialists, each feeding streams of diagnostic feeds into the master console. Dozens of systems across 6 regions had ceased reporting within the last hour. Not failed. Gone silent. Silent in a way that machines don't choose. Pull external telemetry, he barked. A tactical operator obeyed. The main laser plasma display shifted from map overview to spectral readout, a wall of null data. Each channel terminated with the same final log note. Treaty node reclassification initiated. Otin's jaw tightened. Which treaty? The analyst didn't raise his eyes. Earth Council. Format suggests UNSC 19 lineage. That treaty was buried. Otin growled, stepping down from the command platform. It wasn't invalidated. It was forgotten. Across Dominion-controlled space, military logistics platforms were grinding into staggered malfunction. A cargo ring above Eltros 7 had locked its docking clamps mid-cycle, ejecting 4 inbound haulers without warning. Automated mining fields around the Vexari moonline began reporting reverse pressure buildup in the containment vaults, like kinetic systems were charging without command. And nowhere, was there evidence of an enemy fleet. There's no movement from Terran systems, said Merrill Tesk, internal network lead. No intercept logs, no ship deployments, not even basic trade pulses. Yet they've touched over 90 Dominion systems in 3 hours, Otin said, eyes narrowing. Without entering our lanes, he moved back to the center panel and brought up legacy archives. The AI running logistics stuttered for a moment, just long enough to be noticed, and then presented a list of treaty interfaces from the Seldrath Aeon sessions. Near the bottom was a dormant clause tagged VX Delta 0, redacted, no annotations, and still carrying the Earth Council's authority seal. I want the central archive re-indexed. Now, run it manually if you have to, he ordered. Tesk's hands trembled slightly as he keyed in a local override. Otin scanned the left display panel where a cluster of Dominion moons glowed with faint energy signatures. What's that? Secondary flux from orbital strata layers, came the reply. Several Vexari moons are exhibiting charged buildup in buried facilities. They have no weapon infrastructure, Otin said. They're trade shells, processing husks. They were strategist, Tesk corrected. But a few of those facilities were reconstructed using Terran tech during early Accord years. Under civil terms, we never rescanned them for weapon-grade integrity. Otin's heart slowed, not from calm but from focus. A treaty-encoded node embedded in a civilian hub could pass for centuries as a backup relay, even appear helpful. But if it belonged to Earth, and if it was waiting, don't touch anything else, he said flatly. Sir? One of the analysts asked. No pings, no probes, no resets. We're not inside the network anymore, Otin replied. We're inside their design. Across the stars on moons once deemed irrelevant, magnetic anchors trembled beneath their soil. Buried nodes received new instruction from the awakened relay lines, each signal relayed through treaty paths that Dominion systems still honored by default. No alarms triggered, no sirens howled, but the Dominion's tactical command centers lit up like infection maps. Every system they touched flared red, not from attack vectors but from cascading logic. They had built their own infrastructure on the bones of agreements they no longer remembered, and now those bones had reanimated. One of the consoles stuttered. Otin turned. What now? The screen flashed, frames skipping. Then an image appeared, the Terran hammer sigil, partially eroded, still unmistakable. Below it 3 words in ancient Dominion font, status coil engaged. He stepped closer, eyes fixed on the phrasing. Coil, it's not a weapon term, Tesk murmured. It's architectural, like a winding core or constriction ring. Oten exhaled through clenched teeth. They're not attacking, they're compressing. Back at the outer analysis station, another feed collapsed. This time it took planetary navigation controls offline. The Dominion trade fleet orbiting Drexa V began to drift as their thruster calibration systems failed, one by one. Drask Oten turned to the field command array and looked at the mass of unblinking red symbols blanketing their infrastructure. Earth had never come to battle, they had woven themselves in. No transmissions, no announcements, only silence that devoured from within. Tactician Varro, Oten said, voice sharp. Sir, reboot every defense grid. Purge Terran code from all legacy modules. Varro hesitated. That'll shut down transport control for 3 sectors. Then reroute through native systems. Burn the old wiring if you have to. Earth didn't strike us. We surrendered protocol by neglect. Tesk leaned in closer, lowering his voice. Even if we purge, that doesn't change what's buried. If the signal is dormant in hardware, software wipes won't matter. Oten paused, then spoke slowly, each word a weight, then removed the hardware. In the distance, another status update scrolled across the display. Target systems identified. Coil response stabilizing. Countdown quiet mode. Active. There was no timer, no endpoint, just a new rhythm, a pulse. Every Dominion system had fallen into that same cadence, bound now to an architecture built from patience, sealed in silence, and armed by the very hands that once claimed alliance. They're not broadcasting, Tactician Varro whispered. Drask Oten didn't answer. He stood still, eyes fixed on the heads-up display where 6 planetary grids shimmered with flickering arcs. False data, empty returns. No incoming fleets, no engine traces, no visible enemy. Yet every Dominion orbital path lit up with alert markers. Not red, not even yellow. Blue, deep and slow, like the moment before a depth charge breaks the surface from beneath. Impact countdown, Oten asked. No timer, the systems officer replied. Just this. He turned the heads-up to public mode. A sigil pulsed at the center of each display. The Terran hammer, not animated, no movement. Just one unchanging glyph, glowing like heat trapped under stone. Then the first orbital array cracked open. It happened above Vexari 4, one of the outer moons, thought to be barren, split cleanly along a longitudinal seam. A section of crust rotated outward like the iris of an ancient vault. Behind it, sleeping coils, hundreds of them, aligned silently in magnetic lock. Oten leaned forward. Are those kinetic rails? They're not listed in any known configuration, someone whispered behind him. The moon fired without light. It didn't glow. It didn't hiss. The air around the firing coil collapsed briefly, then expanded with a tear so sharp it looked like space had snapped its fingers. The first blast struck a Dominion refueling station in orbit, slicing it into 3 even arcs before any alarm registered. The second followed a moment later, tearing through 2 fleet ships aligned for docking, massive vessels reduced to silhouettes of steam, no sirens, just light. Above Drexa V, a mining asteroid tilted slightly, an unnatural drift too perfect to be random. Beneath its crust, a Terran-plated ridge peeled away like the edge of a curtain, revealing a rail mount that spun once before locking. 2 cargo haulers nearby, unarmed, unaware, vanished beneath a line of impact no one saw coming. Not flame, not shrapnel, just disintegration, like their atoms had been pulled apart by a decision older than their birth. Each array fired once, then waited, not in cooldown, in anticipation. They were not designed for war rhythms. These weren't artillery pieces. These were executions, coded and queued years ago, activated through the arrogance of those who forgot where they had built. On the Varkas Holt, Commander Varric Sen stared at the relay feed projected across the laser plasma wall. His hands didn't move. He didn't blink. Orvac Null floated just ahead, still cold, still. He whispered to no one in particular. We triggered this, didn't we? Kelvin Drakes answered without turning. We finished it. They just waited. Above the Dominion core systems, another moon, smaller, nearly spherical, shed its outer crust in vertical slices. They slid away like puzzle segments, revealing a massive coil buried inside. It didn't rotate. It inhaled, drawing in particles, realigning magnetic fields. The shot it released did not explode. It removed. A segment of space measuring over 3 kilometers simply ceased to reflect. The data disappeared from Dominion tracking logs. Ships within it no longer reported. The air traffic control sector blinked once, then registered open lane. There were no remains. In Dominion Central Command, Oten clenched the edge of the console. Are we getting any signals from the survivors? No survivors have sent anything. He turned to Varro. They're not targeting population centers. No, Varro said. Only the nodes, the bridges, the ships, the memory. Oten exhaled through his nose, the kind of breath taken before accepting something unchangeable. Lock every remaining node to legacy override. Freeze all Terran treaty software. Shut the entire grid down if you must. They built it into hardware. Strategist. That's the trap. We can't shut it down. In orbit over Kelvinar Station, the sky turned black, not from light, from loss. A Terran array embedded in a defunct comm relay fired once. The blast passed through 3 Dominion outposts, not around, through. Each station folded in on itself, panels bending inward, cores collapsing without fire, as if space had reconsidered their presence. Oten stood in silence. Each impact wasn't loud. Each strike didn't scream, but each left absence. Even the screens dimmed as if afraid to display more. On the 6th world, near Eltros 7, the hammer insignia appeared again, this time carved into the dirt by the energy pulse itself. No crater, just smooth rock, etched by impact as cleanly as if shaped by hand. Tactician Varro whispered, "They left it as proof." Oten didn't respond. He understood. This was not a message of power. It was a demonstration of planning. There would be no demand, no claim, no statement. Just the fact that Earth had once left behind a single forgotten ship floating in an asteroid belt, and that alone was enough. "Convoy dead ahead," Eskar Tiln muttered, adjusting the side scope of Crinaldon's bridge console, at least what's left of it. The viewport stretched before him, a pane of reinforced quartz carbon laced with impact stress lines that hadn't been there the day before. Beyond it, the drifting forms of what used to be 6 freighters hovered in uneven silence. Jagged edges curled outward like peeled fruit, hull plating curled in heatless flares. No debris fields, just fractured shells caught mid-thought. Tiln squinted and magnified. One vessel bore his own merchant house's emblem, cut in half and charred around the edges. No flames, no radiation, just the mark of removal. He didn't speak again. In his peripheral vision, his trade console flickered. The last system sync log, time-stamped from his original route ping, read beacon sync conflict, timestamp discrepancy detected. He touched the log, and it replayed a datapath reconstruction. A blue-line trace marked the moment Orvac Null's beacon went offline. It was the same moment each planetary impact had occurred. Not sequential, simultaneous. Tiln backed away from the console. Across Dominion space, in a sealed archive beneath the judicial halls of Kelrith Prime, a data specialist named Tarn Velrix stared at a screen layered in static. The archive was not meant for use. Most of it had been buried after the treaties ended, scanned, indexed, shelved, forgotten. But when the Dominion command lattice collapsed, this system, unlinked from central processing, remained untouched. It flickered back to life without prompting, fed by an internal loop that had detected protocol violation, Article Phi-X Delta 0. Velrex wasn't a soldier. He had never been to war, but he understood codes. His fingers flew across the tactile grid, peeling back the treaty layers one by one, bypassing fail-safe locks meant to keep signatories from ever digging too deeply. The document opened, not the one in the formal Dominion libraries, but the raw format embedded in the treaty relay itself, the system-generated version, not human, not Dominion, but cross-encoded through DeepNet and hidden under false headers. He scrolled. At first, the language was diplomatic, measured, legal, but then came a section titled Redundancy Contingency, UNSC 19 Witness Framework. Velrex's mouth went dry. The clause wasn't written as law. It was a trapdoor, a kill switch embedded into the treaty, waiting for misuse of any Terran node by non-Terran parties. And the definition of misuse: interruption, disconnection, inspection. He triggered a forensic analysis overlay. Each Dominion system, affected in the last cycle, every outpost, tower, relay, orbital station, had once passed through UNSC-19 clearance when it was first built, rebuilt, or realigned with Terran tech. He hadn't understood before. They hadn't signed peace, they'd signed submission, delayed. He tapped the archive's storage key. It refused to close. The treaty had been locked in active state, meaning Earth had reasserted legal ownership over any system that touched the clause. He swallowed hard. The Dominion hadn't been attacked. They'd been repossessed. Back on Crinnel Dawn, Tiln floated through a corridor that no longer felt like his own. The cargo containers around him remained sealed, yet every one now bore a glimmer, tiny symbols no one had placed there. The Terran hammer, etched into the access interfaces, visible only under diagnostic light. None had been present when he departed from Dock 6. They'd appeared after the network reboot. He didn't open the crates. He didn't speak to his crew. There was nothing to say. On Vexari 4, survivors combed the empty launch pads. The sky remained cloudless, but silent. A black dome overhead, carved clean by the orbital array's discharge. Shadows stretched wrong, angled against gravity, warped by gravitational lensing no one could trace. The ground retained no heat. The air tasted sterile. A boy lifted a datapad from the rubble of a shipping center. It booted. Lines of text scrolled upward. Not Dominion language. Old Terran treaty script, signed by over 30 systems, and beneath it, one line burned into the file header. Status, ownership reasserted. A low-ranking officer picked the pad up from the child's hands. Where did you find this? The boy pointed to a pile of ash and concrete, where fragments of a cargo control station still smoldered. It was humming, he said quietly. The officer tapped the screen. The treaty signature flickered once, under it a timestamp. Not today, not this year, but decades earlier. The day Orvac Null had been launched. In Dominion Central, Doskotin sat alone in the war chamber. The seats around him were empty. The tactical feed played without interruption, rotating silently through devastated sectors. There was no longer a war to fight, only aftermath. One screen showed Orvac Null, still suspended in orbit. It hadn't moved, hadn't flared, hadn't broadcast. Its beacon remained offline, but above it, in low contrast, hung the Earth Council's seal. It wasn't threatening, it was unmoving. The static black sky held no stars now, only the reflection of Dominion systems folding inward. And still, Earth had not spoken. It didn't need to. They had written their answer in code, in stone, in silence. They activated Theta 13. Thalon Marek said, not to anyone but to the room that hadn't changed in 43 years. He stood alone, one hand resting against the cold rim of the observatory's main heads-up display. No shadows moved in the chamber, only the soft rotation of deep space feed lines spiraling across the visual lattice. The relay system was running clean. No alerts, no flagged returns. All nodes read, synchronized. Outside, the moon above Europa rotated beneath the station. Beyond it, the silence extended, utter, complete. He adjusted the viewport focus, narrowing the sweep until Orvac Null came into frame. Still dormant, still drifting in Sector Threxon 12. Nothing marked its presence now. No signal, no escort. Just the ghost of an outline cut against a dead belt of rock. Marek didn't smile. He didn't move. A log window floated up beside him. It asked for final confirmation. VX Delta Zero protocol fulfillment status, pending directive completion log required. He looked away from the screen and toward the galaxy's rim, where data arrays whispered back empty confirmation. Over 600 systems now reflected control reclassification. Not one Terran ship had moved. Not a single soldier had left Earth. The Dominion had broken itself on its own assumption that Terran silence equaled absence, that the warship floating inert in disputed space had been forgotten. Marek knew better. He'd written the directive. Orvac Null wasn't slow. It was anchored. He tapped the command seal and began dictating. VX Delta Zero final entry. Directive fulfilled. No deviations from the primary tree. All kill switch clauses remained buried until confirmed breach by non-Terran entity. Trigger path synchronized through salvage treaty nodes embedded under false utility classification. Reactivation cascade successful. He paused. The data feed played again across the display. Footage pulled from surviving Dominion outposts. Moons splitting. Arrays unfolding. Cities silenced not by warheads, but by design. He continued. No kinetic platforms required reinforcement. Orbital arrays retained self-cycling hibernation over 4 decades without maintenance. All reconvergence patterns followed initial simulation. Another pause. He tapped the final line. Commentary optional. Marek inhaled once, held it, then spoke. We taught them to fear our weapons. Then we buried the truth inside treaties they stopped reading. He didn't press send. Not yet. Across known space, broadcasts had gone quiet. Trade federations that once boasted of neutrality now shifted their positions subtly, realigning toward Terran diplomatic satellites. Former allies of the Dominion issued internal reviews, thinly veiled apologies masked as policy revisions. No one said Earth had won, because Earth never fought. The council chamber feeds still echoed with the last looped headline. No official statement from Earth. Not a word, not a broadcast, not even a warning. And somehow, that silence struck deeper than any retaliatory broadcast could have. Marek turned from the viewport and walked toward the archive table. On it sat an old briefcase, manual latch, steel, no circuitry. He opened it. Inside lay the original draft of Directive VX Delta 0, printed, typed. Not a single word altered from the day it had been penned. In the corner, faintly embossed, was the Terran hammer. He lifted the sheet, held it under the station's low-light bands, and read the last line aloud. If they forget we build in silence, remind them we never stop. He placed the paper back inside the case, shut it, and locked the clasp. No music played, no beacon flashed, no battle drum sounded, just a whisper of systems winding down across hundreds of Dominion colonies, now mute. Navigation towers darkened, control bridges emptied, tracking relays flickering out with one final instruction: relinquish. Orvac Null, the warship they called obsolete, remained untouched, not because it was too dangerous, but because every commander who'd seen the aftermath now understood. Earth didn't plant ships. Earth planted consequences. Marek returned to the console and tapped a final line. Log entry complete. Directive status fulfilled. The system dimmed slightly. He didn't stay to watch. Instead, he stepped through the doorway of the observatory and into the hallway where no footsteps echoed. Behind him, the lights began fading one by one. Far across the stars, in a silent Dominion archive, a young analyst looked at the last active Terran treaty and whispered, they weren't defending themselves, they were waiting. And everywhere from the shattered moons to fractured relay grids, one fact remained, undeniable, irreversible. Earth had spoken through silence, and the galaxy could never unhear it.